Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Transportation Subcommittee. Mr. Clerk, could we please call the roll?
Chairman Elliott.
Here.
Council Conway.
Here.
Council Samaras.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, let the record also reflect that Councilor Mercia and Councilor Nguyen have joined us along with the Planning and Development Assistant City Manager, Planning and Development, Christine McCall. The purpose of this Transportation Subcommittee is twofold. One is on a motion relative to starboard traffic patterns at starboard. This came from residents up in that particular neighborhood. As a result of the increased traffic trying to get over the Rourke Bridge or getting to Route 3, this particular section of Pawtucketville has become a cut-through to avoid the intersection of Mammoth Road and VFW. And in particular, this Starboard Street is a road that there are, I believe, 12, the individual told me, around between 10 and 12 children that live on the roads, many of which, there's quite a few that are autistic children. So they're out, they're playing, they're walking to school, and it's become, like many streets, a raceway. However, I think as we done many years ago up in Pawtucketville, we made some streets one way, we alternated one way to prohibit the cut-through coming, trying to get over the Rourke Bridge. I think this would make some sense. I'm not sure. Maybe we can get an update from you, Christine. First of all, I'm afraid to ask the question, but let's ask it. Do we have a prospective candidate yet for the traffic engineer, or fingers crossed?
We do not, but we are working with HR to do direct recruitment, so I'm confident that we will have some candidates to interview soon.
Okay. Do you have some type of time frame? Is there something that we can do to, as a council, or the manager knows the urgency? I understand. Have we reached out to university? And I know this is not the intent of the Transportation Subcommittee. However, I do also know there's been multiple motions filed, and there are some critical, some more urgent traffic issues than others. Do we have any time frame? Because I do know there was a motion that came forward on using money to get a consultant to come up with some solutions on this. And if there's nothing in the near to distant future, then maybe we have to revisit that discussion.
There are some motions that I think we are going to be able to handle in-house. It's just going to take us a little bit longer because we don't have a full-time person dedicated to the responses. But this fall, I think we can address some of the issues that have come up. Can you?
Okay.
In terms of hiring someone, I am eager to get somebody as soon as possible. So we're working, like I said, with our HR department to do some direct recruiting. We hired a consultant, and we're really just trying to talk about how awesome it would be to work for the city of Lowell. Right. So I think we can all just be ambassadors to encourage transportation engineers who want to come work for a really cool planning department. Right. No, I think that's a good idea. Can we get a report from the HR department? Because it's, I would just like to know what the time frame is. What do we have to hire, let's say, a headhunter, for instance? And if that's the case, I know that was the direction we were moving into with the auditor. So it seems like, should we not be able to get a headhunter and say, hey, we need an auditor, we need a transportation engineer? Maybe Councilor Conway brought it up too. And I know this is off the track from transportation. It's more personnel, so I want to be cautious that we're not violating the open meeting law, but it is relative to transportation. Councilor Conway?
Yeah, I thought we were going to bundle those jobs with a headhunter. We're going to do, I think it was 2 or 3 of them. Is that was my impression? Yeah. So I think I can say we're working with the Collins Center, UMass Amherst Collins Center, and they did do a direct recruitment and flyer for the auditor, and we're working on an equivalent for the transportation engineer.
Okay. So good. Okay. All right. Thank you. If there's
any hold up, it would be on me, not on them. So they've been great to work with.
Okay. Good. Well, if we can get an update, that'd be great. And I don't want to stray too far from the content of that was posted. So with that, starboard, I did give a brief explanation. I don't know if there's been anyone looking into any potential solution, but it is speeding, it's a dangerous curve, and Starboard is a cut-through street. Is there some temporary measure that we could look at, as in, as we did on Townsend Ave, here's a good example. No, do not enter between 7 and 9, because that would force the vehicles not to cut down there to get to the VFW to speed and get over the Rourke Bridge, and I'm going to say speed. So can we look into that either, because, do not enter or one-way, either or.
I know that there's parking on both sides, which typically acts as a natural speed calming. And so I don't know if the speeding is an issue or if it's just cut-through traffic, which I can understand people probably cut through if they don't want to wait at the light on Mammoth Road over to Varnum Ave. We did traffic counts last year around in July, and there were about 50 cars that cut through in an hour. And then,
On Brookside / Woodward?
yep, from Woodward, which is Mammoth to Woodward to VFW. I think
Yep.
that's how people send. And then we did one yesterday, and it was reduced a little down to 44.
Yep.
So we can do a number of things. We could look into what we've done on other streets in Pawtuckettville. We just sort of want to be mindful of the overall system. We may need to do it on another street. I also don't know where the peak cut-through is happening, because obviously we don't want to not allow cut-through traffic at all, because sometimes cut-through traffic can be good for decongestion on main streets, especially for residents who live in the neighborhood. We can also talk to Waze to make sure, to see if we can work with them to, I think we did this at another cut-through street in a different neighborhood, so that it wouldn't come up as an alternative route. So that's something we can do as well. So that if someone's on Waze and they're from out of town, so it would only be for residents who know that that's.
I do think it's the morning traffic, because on the way home, people can't cut through in the opposite direction because there is a guardrail. So I would like to, I don't know if I can suggest or, I can suggest. I suggest that it's just a do not enter between 7 and 9 o'clock at night, in the morning. That would stop the cut-through traffic. It would also make it a much more safe place for those kids who are in the neighborhood, but also those kids that are walking to the McAvenue School, which is probably less than 1,000 feet away. So that was really the essence of this. So I don't think we need that in the form of a motion. It's more just a suggestion to look at and maybe come back with a recommendation at the next subcommittee meeting. Councilor Samaras?
Thank you. Chairman Elliott did make a good recommendation as to what we could do with the cut-throughs, but I think Christine, that there are just many streets in Lowell that are cut-through streets. And Lowell, basically, because of the way it's situated between Route 3, 93, and 495, it's a natural cut-through. But is it possible, actually, for somebody in your staff to just contact other communities as to what they've done with cut-through traffic? In other words, other suggestions that we possibly could take. There might be something out there that's creative, because it has to stop. If you look at Belvedere, you look at Clark Road, you look at Douglas Road, it's those are roads now, when certain type of construction comes through, trucks just haul right through there, okay? And so the thing is, I think if there's a possibility of coming up with some type of, a group of suggestions that could be made that other communities have made. Hopefully we get a traffic engineer, he or she will give us creative ideas, but we need to have as much ammunition, in our pockets, so to speak, as we can to deal with this. Thank you.
I think I'd like to entertain that in the form of a motion, that we bring that recommendation forward, because I think it would certainly address this situation, but in citywide, to look at various options on cut-through, because it does seem, prior to COVID, whether it was Myrtle Street, or I'm trying to think of some others that we even took corrective actions, and the people still cut through because of Waze. Absolutely, the app. Motion by Councilor Samaras, second by Councilor Conway, to request planning development reach out to other communities to come up with suggestions to mitigate cut-through traffic. All those in favor signify by saying aye. On the motion, Council Conway?
Yeah, I think that's why, when we were just talking a few minutes ago about a traffic engineer, I mean, that's their job. They obviously, they've studied these patents, and they obviously have the understanding and the knowledge of which way to go and how to make things a bit easier, and whether it's cut-throughs or speeding and so forth, where I think the average person is a little bit in the dark because we see it. It's something that comes up all the time. We talked about this, I don't know how many times on the floor. Everyone's putting motions on, dealing with four-way stop signs, two-way stop signs, speeding, and so forth. So again, I think I know, I'm sure we're all anxiously awaiting to get that traffic engineer on board, because that's the person that's going to have the bag of tricks that we're groping, we're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And the quicker we get that individual on board, I think it'll be a real positive change for us going forward. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And the opposed, that motion carries. I know we're going to look for a transportation update. However, I know the Department of Public Works on the construction projects for the numerous bridge reconstruction projects taking place in the city. I did communicate with the commissioner. She is inundated with school issues, so I suggested don't.
She's on the Zoom. Right.
Oh, she's on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we can't see we got to get the Zoom on these cameras here, so. Christine, I just gave you a pass, but you're on Zoom, so let's go to you.
So sure. So I do have an update on some brief not all the city projects, but just some updates on some of our high profile projects, and updates that we're coming to a point where some projects are ending, and also or starting new phases. So the Lord Overpass project, we are still in that phase where Middlesex Street is closed through traffic. For through traffic. That will change in September. It might change later into September or even potentially early October. We are pending procurement of traffic signal equipment. But I guess the good news is that once we do switch over to that phase, that will provide some relief to that area by opening up Middlesex Street through that area, Dutton and Thorndike. And then also the citywide paving program that right now we have just finished paving on Stevens and Pine Street. Line striping is actually occurring tonight. It was supposed to happen this weekend, but it did not with the storm. And we still have to do some punch list work there for those two streets where we're making sure the driveway aprons are no more than 1 inch of a lip, and then other back of sidewalk cleanup work. So that will continue. And that contractor, Allied Paving, is the city's contractor. They will continue into moving on to Plain Street is the next street that we will be doing. And then lastly, the update I have is for the Tiger project. And the good news is that both the Pawtucket over Northern and the Pawtucket over Pawtucket Canal, those two bridges will be open in both lanes by mid-September, might even be a little earlier. So that's the good news for the Tiger project. The one update I do have, it's a brief update, is the Central Street Bridge. A lot of people have been asking, what's the status of it? I know last February we were looking at trying to expedite some of the work to go from a 3-phase project to a 2-phase. So we mobilized by changing it in 1 lane, heading towards Merrimack Street and detouring traffic elsewhere up Merrimack and Church Street. So we started earlier this summer, we started removing the decking on that first phase. And as you all remember, we noticed that there was substantially more deterioration of the steel. So at that point, I think this was presented to council and discussed at the transportation subcommittee meetings, previous meetings, is that we had to do a redesign essentially, or added design. And we were looking at not doing partial beam replacement, but full beam replacement. So the good news is at the end of this project, we will have a bridge that we won't have to come back to for 50 plus years. Previously, it was really a 10 to 20-year fix. So we're still going through that design effort right now, and that is why you have seen construction stalled on that bridge. So where we are right now is we are coordinating that project, the latest design with the contractor. They will provide a pricing. We're coordinating funding with Mass DOT to be able to fund this added change. And then the largest change, and it's the question mark, is the procurement timeline for steel. That really is the critical path. We need to have steel in order to be able to begin construction. And so I think earlier this summer, we were looking at a 1-month timeline that jumped to 10 months potentially. So when we just recently found this out, we are right now trying to understand if we can reduce that timeline. And so this is an update. I kind of say ripping off the Band-Aid. It's not a great update. And we're still going through, to come up with a plan to present an updated schedule. But what I can say tonight is that we know that we're quickly trying to expedite this design, or not this design, this change, seeing how quickly we can procure the steel. The question that we have now is, can we procure some of the steel so that we don't have to wait for all the steel for a longer duration? And then we also are looking at utilities. Is there an opportunity now to maybe go in there and replace utilities or move utilities if we have a little more time? And maybe that will, when we eventually start to install the steel, it'd be an easier, expedited installation. So in terms of, I think the biggest question that everyone is asking is, when will this bridge open up again to two-way traffic, even in its to the next phase? We don't have a complete answer on that right now, but we can say that we just know as we work through the next steps that this fall it will continue in its current traffic pattern, which is traffic maintaining one lane for traffic heading towards Merrimack Street, and then the outbound traffic coming from VFW, it would be detoured accordingly.
Thank you, Christine. Unfortunately, not so good news on the Central Street, I understand. So just to clarify, the one-way pattern, the one-way lane coming into the city will remain in effect till the fall or through the fall?
And that's, I guess, we don't know the entire duration right now because we are going through the procurement timeline. How long does it take to procure steel? And then once we have the steel, how long does it take to install the steel? So beginning of the summer, it was 1 month, and then it jumped to 10 months. So that is a huge window.
Do we have any idea why that time frame jumped? I'm just curious.
My understanding is it's the supply and demand. I mean, construction has continued through the pandemic, and especially construction. And so steel prices have increased by about 200% since the beginning of pandemic, and also the availability of it is also back ordered.
Okay, any questions from the subcommittee on this? No. You had mentioned, and I just couldn't hear it clearly, the bridge over the Pawtucket Canal on Pawtucket Street, and then Pawtucket Canal on the bridge over.
Sure, Pawtucket. So the one that over by Foxhall over by University Crossing, that one will be open in both directions, and same with the Pawtucket over Northern on Pawtucket Street.
Over Northern, okay. Got it.
As far as the Central Street, as soon as we have a schedule, we will share that. And I mean, even just hearing this update a week ago internally, it's like, how do we tell the public, we don't have that revised schedule. But I think just knowing where we are today, we told people that by the fall we would have a lane open. We know that's not the case.
Okay. I did notice a number of intersections being repaved. Really, it does look nice, so that's good. That's good information. Any other questions from other members of the subcommittee? Any other bridges?
I have a couple of positive
Sure.
updates.
Let's go positive.
we'll work on a more exhaustive update this fall in conjunction with Christine. But you may have seen some activity on social media over the weekend. One bridge of the Concord River Greenway was installed, and so the second one, I think if it's coming this week or next week, so then we'll be working on punch list items, landscaping, so the Concord River Greenway project should be done this fall. And other good news, the connector trail, that is also slated to be complete this fall. We are currently working out the details of a permanent easement with an adjacent property owner, and then we're going to pave it, and then that'll be done. So that is also part of our citywide trail network, which is exciting. And then the Riverwalk Project, that bridge is ready to be installed, but we have chosen to wait until after the Lowell Memorial Auditorium's Irish Festival, so as to not disrupt that exciting event that they're having. And so the bridge will be installed. So by Thanksgiving, the bridge will be complete, which is exciting. And then obviously winter will slow us down. And then in the spring, we'll pick up finishing the interceptor work, punch list items, and landscaping. So we're hopeful the Riverwalk project will be done in the spring.
Can you just a real brief description of that Riverwalk, from where to where?
Sure. So the Riverwalk project is an extension on there's an existing Riverwalk from UMass Lowell all the way to,
Cox Bridge.
To the Hunts Bridge. And we're proposing to extend it with a bridge over to LMA, the Lowell Memorial Auditorium.
Right. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so then
Yeah.
it connects, so actually you can walk along the river from sort of Lawrence Andover to Lowell, and, not all of it is clear, and there's a trawl you'll have to come off, then there's wastewater, you have to actually go up to the street.
Sure.
But it connects to that network, and then eventually, you'll be able to cross the street on Merrimack Street, and it connects to the Concord River Greenway.
Okay.
So it is part of our overarching larger trail network in the city.
And how long will the Concord River Greenway be once this piece is connected?
That's a really great question, and I don't know the answer
Okay.
off the top of my head. But the Concord River Greenway, of all the phases that we have, is actually one phase in a larger Bay Circuit trail, which is all over the Northeast. So it's exciting.
Great.
And I can get those numbers to you.
Okay, good. I don't have anything else. Thank you for the update. It's good for us to just meet and stay on top of the transportation and construction in the city. We'll bring this report forward. Councilor Marcia, Councilor Nguyen? Councilor Marcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only concern I have, and you kind of said on it a little bit as well, is that whatever Christine Clancy has for updates, I'd like the council to get a copy of that as well. Because we're out and about and people say, oh, what about this and what about that? And if I had some information, I could study it a little better than to just hearing it once. So that would, and Christine as well, whatever you have as far as the walkways, if we could have a copy of that too.
Christine and I had talked earlier with the manager's office, and we're going to provide a written formal construction update to the council in September.
Okay, that makes sense. Councilor Samaras.
Oh, thank you. Councilor Mercia touched upon, information that we need. The one thing about the Concord Greenway, I mean, it's a lot of it started at Jarvis's, because from Jarvis's you go into Chelmsford. How is that all taken care of through that area?
Oh, the connector trail?
Yes.
Jarvis has been wonderful. And so there is a portion of his project that does require to be paved. And so, but the details we're working out aren't with him. He's been really wonderful. It's actually a different property owner. And so once we finalize the permanent easements with the other property owner, we're going to pave that area. And then Jarvis is going to continue to pave his section. So he's been a wonderful partner, and we're very grateful for how generous he's been.
Okay, so if we get that update plus that information, there's been a lot of people, actually more than several years ago that were very interested, and it was, in a sense, a hot button issue, but everything seems to be working out, but it's now when, at this particular point. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo what you said about Starboard. This is only one day. It probably doesn't mean anything to the traffic engineer, but this past Sunday, I was in the areas of Starboard Street. It's not really a cut through as a speed through. Not one. There's a couple other cars, and I was there with families, with other members. We were out there doing some, work from house to house, basically. So really, it's scary for those children that live around that area. So I echo your concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I don't think there's anything else before the subcommittee, and Christina, unless you have anything else? No? Okay, good. Entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Samaras. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.